Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's I'm going to be looking at the all-new Range Rover Evoque. First and foremost though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Land Rover here in Lehi, Utah for giving me some time with this Evoque. I'm going to include a link to their inventory in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. Something that's awesome about the Land Rover here in Lehi is they do not charge over MSRP for any of the new Land Rover or Jaguar products. So if you want a great deal on a new Land Rover or Jaguar, definitely check them out. Like I said, link to their inventory in the description down below. If you have any questions, just ask for Jordan. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below as well. Let's get into it. Under the hood, we have a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 246 horsepower and then 269 pound-feet of torque, with fuel economy being 20 around town and then 27 on the highway. Now let's go to the front end of the Evoque. So first off, I think this is pretty cool. We have some elements here on the Evoque right here, and then it's also on the side, and it kind of changes color from this like gray to almost like a rose gold. I don't know, I just think it's pretty nifty. Hopefully the camera will pick it up at some point. Anyways, Range Rover logo there. And then you guys can see with the signature Range Rover grille, got the Land Rover logo as well. And then we've got these cool LED lights. And then I don't know if you guys can see the effect here. Let me just zoom in. So you guys can kind of see how it almost like changes color with the view. I think that's pretty cool. Our dynamic badge there at the bottom, and then you guys can see parking sensors as well, and it's a little baby Range Rover. Coming around the side here, our tire and wheel setup is 235, 50, 20 in the front and over in the rear as well. And you guys can see here with the wheel, you got the silver there on the top and then the dark metallic gray below it. Overall, I think together it looks pretty dang sweet. And then you guys can see those elements we went over on the front end, how those kind of pop out here on the side. And then again, more of the interesting color changing trim there. Blacked out trim here at the bottom. We got the pop out door handles. Roof is black, mirror caps are also blacked out, which is pretty cool. There's the side. So here is our key fob. You guys can see we've got the Land Rover logo there on the back. We have our unlock lock function. That's to turn on the lights. And then this is to open up the rear hatch. So press that and it'll pop it right open. And then you guys can see here with the built-in cargo cover. And then we got this little like cubby down below. We've got all of our rubber floor mats as well. Storage space back here is pretty decent. Again, it is a smaller sized crossover, so just take that into account. When you're all done, just press that and boom, all closed. Now let's finish things up with the rest of the rear. First off, this has Range Rover's cool 3-dimensional lights. I just definitely think it's a fun effect. You guys can see the turn signal there. And then we got a Range Rover logo here, Evoque, Land Rover off to the side. Parking sensors here at the bottom. I love how that trim right there is white. I think that looks pretty good. And I guess I'm gonna have to like kind of climb up this little rocky hill so you guys can see. There's the rear. So here's the rear door panel. You guys can see we actually have some soft touch here at the top. And look at the trim down below and then all over the rest of the door panel. I think it looks pretty sweet. Of course, we got the Meridian sound system. And then here are the seats in the rear. Cool two-tone design, and then notice perforated all down the center portion. And then popping in, there's your legroom. And looks like we got the attachments put on, which is pretty neat. Anyways, got a little storage pocket here. Vents here for the rear passengers. And then, of course, we have our cup holder armrest. Let's head to the front. So here's the front door panel. You guys can see again with kind of like the padding at the top and then with the white leather trim down below. Definitely a lot happening on the door panel. All of our window controls, the mirror adjustments, the door lock and unlock, and then here's a quick look at the mirrors themselves. And then here are the seats. Again, got that cool two-tone design, and then also down below. Our dynamic logo, power adjustments here on the side of the seat, by the way. Pedal layout right there. And we have the opening there for the rear hatch, parking brake, and then here's the nice padding up above. Let's pop in. So here's a quick look at the steering wheel. You guys can see really nice leather trim all around, and then notice perforated there on the center portion. Cool paddle shifters here on the back, and then we got some controls for the center stack, voice command controls. We do have adaptive cruise control as well, and then look at the stitching here on the airbag cover with the Range Rover logo. Turn signal light stock, windshield wiper stock, you know all the normal works, and there's the steering wheel. Now here's the center gauge cluster, so it's the half analog, half screen gauge cluster that Land Rover has. Now if I press that button there on the left side of the steering wheel, it'll let me scroll through some different menus here on the center to see different bits of information here on this Range Rover. Other than that though, pretty simplistic. There you go. So first off, this has the cool pop-up screen, so I turned the Evoque off and then turning it back on. I'm on the wheel info right now, so it shows like elevation and everything, which is cool. Anyways, popping in reverse, we do have the backup camera trajectory lines that turn the steering wheel. Resolution on those is pretty dang solid. And then as for the rest of the infotainment system, response time's great. It's easy to use. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's a cool system overall, and so there you go. Now you guys can see all of the trim all around here. And then notice with the vents there in the center, and then the trim that goes across, pretty cool. And then down below we have our secondary screen. So you guys can see with the seats, so for me to adjust that, I can just press this in, and then that'll let me turn on the heated seats. This does not have air-conditioned seats, just heated seats, and then press it in again, and lets me adjust the temperature. And then there's like a fan speed button over here that I can press, and then I can adjust the fan speed. Pretty cool. Now, we do have the whole vehicle select system over here, so basically just for the drive mode, so you got an eco mode, comfort is standard, and then you have a grass, gravel, snow, we have a mud, ruts, we have a sand mode, and then we have an auto mode, which auto mode is obviously the easiest. Now this actually does have auto hold, but it also has off-road cruise control, which is pretty cool. You can turn off the auto stop start if you want, and well, the focus camera, there you go. So here's a shifter for the 9-speed automatic transmission. It does have a manual shift function if you want to use that. Notice it says Land Rover right there. A couple cup holders right here, and then we have this interesting center console setup with some USB action. Double armrest, it's always fun with how that pops up. Nice padding there on the top. And here's a quick look at the glove box setup. And then up top here we do have a panoramic sunroof, as you can see. Got the controls here for the sunroof, and there you go. So here's a window sticker for this Evoque. You guys can see all the standard equipment, and then notice 4-year, 50,000 mile new vehicle warranty. Base MSRP $48,000, and then after all options on this one, $56,285 is the total MSRP. Let's see how it drives. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors, throughout the rest of the rear, and let's set off. So, setting off here in the Evoque, and this is gonna cap off my Range Rover day, where I have literally driven like almost every single model that Range Rover sells. Definitely an interesting day to say the least. But, you know, talking about the Evoque here, first off, this 9-speed, I will say at low speeds, isn't as refined as the 8-speed that Land Rover has in some of their other vehicles. And even getting up and moving, it's a good transmission, like, in terms of modern standards, but like, compared to that 8-speed, it's not nearly as good. Ride quality is actually surprisingly solid. I didn't expect it to be really good because this doesn't have air suspension, and it's also just a really short wheelbase SUV. And so, you know, those two things mean it's, you know, probably not going to be the smoothest riding, but it's still actually pretty dang comfortable. Seat comfort's amazing. That's something that's definitely like really good. Like these, Land Rover knows how to make seats. These seats are really good. Handling's great. Again, it's got kind of like a small, zippy feel, which is pretty fun. I love how easy all the controls are to use. It's one of the things that's great about Land Rovers is, again, everything's just kind of like easy to use. Okay, so we'll get our little acceleration here. Yeah, solid. That BMW is just hauling. That's funny. But yeah, it's decent with this turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. Something that surprised me driving all of these Land Rovers today is that they actually handle pretty well. Again, they're big, heavy SUVs. This obviously smaller and less heavy, but like in general, big, heavy SUVs, and they actually all ride. Well, they ride pretty well, but they also handle really well. So it's pretty impressive. I like the overall dynamics. I will say that, because it's like I get comfort, but then also pretty decent handling. It's kind of like all mixed into one. So getting up and moving again here. Definitely fun, that's for sure. So yeah, I guess we'll start to sum things up here at the Evoque. So the actual engine itself, I think, is that it actually makes quite a bit of sense. Now, what would be crazy, and you know, they're not going to do this probably ever potentially, but what would be crazy is if they threw the turbocharged inline 6 in this, or what would be even crazier, think like the V8 in this thing. That would be just absolutely insane. But yeah, this is solid. The only thing that's a little bit of a downside is the transmission. The 9-speed's just not nearly as refined as the 8-speed, especially at low speeds. It can kind of feel a little bit more on the clunky side of things, again, especially when you compare it to the 8-speed automatic that you can get in Land Rover product. Other than that, I mean, you know, as an affordable Land Rover, I think this is great. It's comfortable, drives really well, and the only thing I can knock on it, like I said, is the transmission's just, especially driving all these vehicles back to back, the transmission's just the only letdown on this. But let me know what you guys think about the Evoque.